Colossians 3:17 says, whatever you do in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus.
Right.
Giving thanks
to
God the Father through him. So how do we terminate someone's employment, right? And do that to the glory of God in the name of Jesus, right? So we want to talk about that this week. And maybe you're not in leadership. Maybe you've never had to hire someone or fire someone. Maybe, but I think some of the principles and some of the concepts and some of the stories we're going to tell today might be able to encourage you just the way you engage your everyday life as well.
Absolutely. Episode number 7. Welcome, everybody. We are here for another Missional Marketplace podcast, episode 7.
And we're on the downhill side of season 1. Right?
That's right. That's right. We're gonna start moving in that direction. But if this is your first time with us, we're glad that you are here. My name is Darren Cooper, co-host here with my good brother, almost
brother.
Say good friend,
Your good friend.
Good brother, Mr. Eric Cooper, and we are excited to be here for episode
Brothers
7.
Don't shake hands.
Brothers
gotta hug.
Oh, yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Well, Missional Marketplace podcast, all about accelerating the Great Commission through the marketplace.
That's right.
That is why we are having these conversations. That's why we show up and record our voices, our lovely voices each and every week.
Which people have already said they like yours better. They vote for your voice more than they vote for mine.
That's why we will be here.
That's right.
Every week here on the Missional Marketplace podcast. No, but it is all about offering hope and encouragement to those in the marketplace that are working each and every day, each and every week, and might be saying, what in the world does this have to do with my faith? How does this reconcile? I can't always figure it out because sometimes work is mundane, sometimes work is boring, sometimes work is just plain hard.
Yep. I would just say, if we had a goal here, I mean, one of the things we would love to do is just, I mean, even if it's 10 people, it's 12 people, right? If we can encourage believers in the marketplace that who you are, the gifts you have, the roles you have, how God made you as part of his mission and his plan for this world.
Yeah.
If we could just encourage a handful of people in that, it would be a success for us.
To give a different perspective, some way of just looking at it differently and allowing God to move and work in that space that we call work each and every day.
Yeah, so, to reframe every aspect of our lives, including our everyday work, through the lens of the gospel and what Jesus has done for us.
Yeah, that's good. And if you've taken this journey with us, we say it pretty much every week. We're following in this first season, at least, we are following Eric's book, Missional Marketplace. That's where the name came from. Whoa, mind blown.
Mind blown. That's right.
Mind blown. But we're following that. We talked the first few episodes about work and the great story.
That's right.
And then last week we kind of switched a little bit and talked about work and the great commandment. The overflow of our everyday work and the great commandment.
Yeah, so how your work fits into the great story of God, right?
Yeah.
But now we're in kind of the practical realities of this, which is how does our work fulfill the great commandment? Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
Well, we believe that our jobs every day, whether you're a brain surgeon or you sweep floors, that all of it can fulfill the great commandment if we reframe it through the lens of the gospel.
Right. And that's what it's all about. So you said we're in a little bit of the practicals here. And so last week we talked about greed.
Dun, dun. Yeah, we need those little sounders.
I know. I tell you what.
Maybe by season 2. Yeah,
you never know. You never know when we'll pull them out, but it'll be awesome. It'll be unexpected, but it'll be awesome. Right. But we talked about greed, and you kind of reshaped that a little bit. You said greed is
not good.
Right. Well, yes. You said greed is not.
Yeah, I thought you were quoting Gordon Gekko from.
No, I wasn't
you're not old
there.
enough. You're not old enough to remember Gordon Gekko. No. Greed is not a business problem.
Right.
It's a worship problem.
It is a worship problem. That's what we framed up.
More prep and
I thought I teed it up well for you there, but I think I left a blank. But no. Yeah, greed is a worship problem.
It's a worship problem. That's right. Yeah.
And I love that. And so if you haven't heard that episode, go ahead and stop right now. Well, I guess you can finish this one if you want, but make sure you catch that. That was that last episode?
That was last episode.
That was last episode.
Episode 6.
Right?
Yep.
So episode 6, you can catch that. Talking about greed is a worship problem. But this week we're heading into another practical, and it's one that's fun to talk about, kind of. But hiring and firing. Oh,
I don't know. My blood pressure just went up a little bit.
Man. Yeah. How do you do that? If you're in a point of leadership, how do you hire somebody to the glory of God? How do you fire somebody and still keep that in the center of everything? That's a difficult one.
Oh, it's a really difficult one. In fact, my heart is beginning to flutter a little bit even talking about it, right? Like, I mean, talking about hiring is a little different, but we talk about firing.
Sure.
I mean, Colossians 3:17 says, whatever you do in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus.
Right.
Giving thanks
to
God the Father through him. So how do we terminate someone's employment, right? And do that to the glory of God in the name of Jesus, right? So we want to talk about that this week. And maybe you're not in leadership. Maybe you've never had to hire someone or fire someone. Maybe, but I think some of the principles and some of the concepts and some of the stories we're going to tell today might be able to encourage you just the way you engage your everyday life as well.
Absolutely. Because that is, I mean, really all of that, even the hiring side of things and the firing side of things, there's a lot of emotion involved in it. The excitement of the hiring process, even looking for the right person, seeing how they can interact with your company and what you're trying to accomplish. And then, that's the exciting part. But then when you have to separate ways from somebody, whether it's a choice of your own or something else that's going on, how do you make sure that dignity is there and see them as human and not just a problem that you have to eliminate, you know? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this week, in the practical side of things. And so, Eric, let's start off then. Let's start with the positive one, right? Let's start with the one that's easy to talk about. But how would you see, or how would you frame up some of these things when it comes to hiring to the glory of God, if you will? Yeah,
I think this is a much easier side of the conversation to some extent. But I think we do want to bring out a key point. All right, I think one of the issues with the marketplace, one of the reasons the marketplace gets a bad rap, is because when it's not approached or seen through that redemptive lens, right? People become transactions. People become cogs in a wheel, right? And I think the first thing, when we talk about hiring people to the glory of God, the first thing Jesus did or showed us was he saw people. He looked at the rich young ruler. It says he looked at him and he loved him. He looked at him. He saw his face. And I mean, even if you read through the New Testament and the epistles and really the whole of Scripture, people who normally were just discarded, they were seen as cogs in a wheel. Paul or the apostles or the disciples would call them by name. They were known by name. They were known by their faces, right? And what Jesus taught us was how to see people. People are not transactions. People are not cogs in your wheel. So the first thing we need to do is we need to see humans, not just for what they can do for us, but as the image of God. And we talked about that in earlier episodes, right? Right. So do we need roles and skill sets filled? Of course we need roles and skill sets filled. So I'm not saying just go out and hire people.
You're a human, matter, let's
right?
go.
Yeah, you're human. Yeah, come work for me, right? But the question is, so we need skill sets, and we don't hire people just because it's charitable. Right. That's not what I'm suggesting. Right. But it's important and vital for gospel redeemed people to see the image of God in other people and not just what those people can do for them. So if you want to redeem the marketplace, I think that's one of the first and most key things we can do and bring as marketplace Christians is we see humans. And so I think it might be a little easier if we look at this through the lens of some stories.
Absolutely. Stories are always good ways of looking at things, right?
That's right.
I mean, Jesus told parables all the time for a reason.
That's right. So. That's right. Well, we have we have an incredible team here at CRF. And for those of you who don't know, we have the Stone Tables, our missions organization. Right. We also have, though, a real estate company called Community Reinvestment Foundation, or CRF Affordable Housing now is how we refer to it. And we have an incredible team here that runs apartment complexes on a day in and day out basis. That's our core business, right?
That's what it looks like each
and
day.
We have, I shouldn't, it's like having kids, right? It's like, I don't want to say I have a favorite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You can't say that.
But Kanika she's one of my favorite, right? Like I always say that to Anna. I'll tell her she's my favorite middle daughter.
Yeah,
right?
favorite middle.
Yeah, my favorite middle daughter, my favorite older daughter. Yeah. So, but Kanika does an incredible job running one of our largest properties, and really one of our most difficult properties, just because of its size, its location. For sure. But it is filled, Darren, with a lot of Section 8 housing. For those who don't know, that is a particular kind of low income housing that is partially funded by the government. It has tax credits. Right. But this is a large property, and when you have Section 8 housing, one of the things you deal with is tons of paperwork.
Oh man. So much.
Tons of paperwork, so right?
Much paperwork.
And all of this paperwork has to be updated all the time, right?
Yeah.
At least annually, but anytime there's an employment change or a situation in the household that changes, right? So you've got income verifications, you've got employment changes, you got tax documents, you've got background checks, all of this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has to be right, or you can get in trouble with Uncle Sam, right? And we don't want to be in trouble with Uncle Sam.
For sure.
And so we've got compliance people, our staff on site that just has to do such a great job of staying up on all of that. And years ago, Kanika had a single mom that was on Section 8 housing that lived in our community. She came in and was updating her paperwork. And the staff and Kanika both noticed every time she would come in, like her paperwork was flawless. I mean, it was flawless, and
which is not easy to do.
It's not easy to do, right? Like typically, I think about even when I have to fill out paperwork, a lot of times you're like, how does this work? Or,
where's this
but
go?
it became clear very quickly that she actually understood the process even better than some people that were working for us, right?
Wow.
And they noticed that. At one point, she noted an error that one of the staff had made, and she was like, "Hey, I think we need to fix this here, right?"
Oh my goodness!
And so,
that's crazy.
And so, just through the passage of time, our compliance person at the property left, took a promotion, and Kanika reached out to this lady and said, "Hey, would you like to come work for me?"
Yeah.
And her response was, "Why in the world would you want me? I'm just a single mom on Section 8 housing. Like I don't fit a position or a role like this."
Right.
But what I love is Kanika saw her.
For sure.
She didn't see the transaction. Yeah. She didn't see the paperwork. She didn't see, the hassle that she has to go through to serve this type of a customer. Right. But she saw this woman. Yeah. She saw her. Right? She saw the image of God in her.
Right. And it like we say, we all have dealt with tons of paperwork. It doesn't bring out the best in us all the time. It does not. No. So not only did Kanika see her, but she had to come in with a almost just something like about her presence that made Kanika notice, right? To go, man, not only is your paperwork flawless, but there's something about you that makes me go, I need to take note of that.
Yeah.
And so that's amazing to see. And I love that story just because Kanika just noticing. And then, obviously when the position's filled, to be able to go, I assume that you have skills. I mean, she didn't know. She just saw her paperwork from this standpoint. And just said, I see you. I think there's something there, and didn't worry about her circumstance or what was going on.
Where other people would have looked over her, right?
Yeah.
Where other people would have just said, well, she's not interested or she's not qualified, right? And so I love that story because Kanika saw her. She saw the image of God in her. Yeah. She saw value in her. And so I like to tell that story whenever I can because I think it reflects so much of that gospel redemptive reality. And actually, get this, Darren, she became a fantastic employee, and she got so good at her job that somebody came and hired her away. And she makes like triple what we could have ever paid her now, right? And so this was redemptive. This was a redemptive hiring story,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
But not all the stories are warm and fuzzy like that. But I think the key takeaway here is see people, see the image of God. Don't see just what they can do for you. That's important, okay? They have to have skill sets that we need, right, in our organizations.
For sure.
But see the humanity, honor the image of God.
Right.
And I think that is what makes it beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that too, just because when you see people, I know we're going to step into the firing side of things here in a little bit, but when you see people, that allows you to help them find the right place for them too.
Yeah.
If Kanika would have hired her and she walked in and she didn't have the skill set, it's actually not good for Kanika to keep her around in that front.
Right.
Like, let's find you the right seat on the bus, to use that analogy, right? And so that's what's beautiful about that, and that's what I hear you saying when you say, hey, skill set is important,
right?
Because everybody has a skill set. Everybody has something that they can
Everybody
contribute.
has gifts given to them by God.
And so it's finding that and helping them bring that to life.
Drawing it out of them.
Ways.
Maybe seeing it when they don't see it themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because it's easy to go, well, they're not doing the job right and they can't do the job, and then we just need to move on. But when you say, hey, there's something inside of you, you can rise to this.
And I'll give you even a crazier outlier story in this regard,
Bring it
right?
up, bring it
yeah,
up.
we have a mutual friend who's also in the real estate management business. But he told me when we had lunch a couple of months ago, they actually have a program where they're going into prisons and they are hiring maintenance and ground staff while they're still in prison.
Wow.
And they're looking. I mean, they have a process, and a program, right? Things they're looking for, right? But they begin working with them before they even get out of jail.
Wow.
They begin speaking into their lives, calling out that humanity, that image of God, that value, right? And I asked him over lunch. I said, "Hey, does it work out?" And he said, "Not always. Not always. Sometimes it's a hot mess, right?"
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting this for everyone, right? But I think the point here is see people, see the image of God, call out the value that is inherent in every human being, and I think looking beyond that transactional reality that can so easily come into the marketplace. I think that's the key takeaway.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, I mean, humanity is often messy, right? It doesn't always work out.
Is it really?
Right. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I guess so. Yeah.
But it is messy, and don't be afraid of that happening.
Right.
I think, I even think of how I think and process sometimes, where it's like it has to be perfect. There has to be the point A, point B. Like, these things need to line up perfectly. But often some of the most beautiful stories and some of the most redemptive stories come in when you step into kind of some of the mess of it all.
Yeah.
And that's what we see in that story there. It's like, it doesn't always work out, but there's some really beautiful things that come of it. So,
well, let's pivot to the more, I guess, emotional distressing side of the situation.
Yeah, this one's fun. That's firing.
Yeah. How do you redemptively terminate someone's employment?
Yeah.
How do you redemptively terminate someone's employment? And I'll be honest with you, Darren, luckily I've only had to do this, really a handful of times in my career. I'm thankful. I mean, I know some people.
So I'm glad you're in the seat that you're in, not me.
Yeah, well, I understand. Yeah, I understand. But, a few years ago, I had one of those gut-wrenching situations. It was, I'm going to avoid the specifics here, all right? But let's just say it was warranted and obvious. It had to happen, but I literally lost sleep the whole weekend. My stomach was in knots. I knew on Saturday morning that we had to do this on Monday. And I'm thinking to myself, we're an outspoken Christian organization, right? So how do I terminate this person and still show them the love of Christ?
Right.
And I'll tell you, this is what I felt the Lord spoke to me. Did I use proper grammar there? Yeah. This is what I felt the Lord speak to me. Right.
Yeah, either
Grandma,
way.
wherever she's at right now.
Grandma would have told you.
She was smacking me in the back of the head for that one,
absolutely.
right? No. But here's what I felt the Lord spoke to me in that moment. He said, redemptive does not mean warm and fuzzy. Redemptive does not mean avoiding confrontation. Redemptive does not mean everybody feels good about it when it's over, right? Redemptive means, this is the literal definition, the act of saving someone from error or evil. That's what redemptive means, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for Jesus, redemptive meant death on a cross, right?
Yeah.
So redemptive doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean warm and fuzzy. And the Lord took me to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. You probably know this. Many people probably know this as the love chapter. We typically see 1 Corinthians 13 read at weddings.
For sure.
I mean, it is mostly a warm and fuzzy chapter of Scripture. And, love is patient, love is kind, it's not arrogant or rude, it's not irritable, etc. Right? Like all the obvious stuff, the things we think of when we think of love. But then it pivots and it says, love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth.
Yeah.
It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but love actually confronts people. Love is redemptive. Love saving someone from error or evil.
Yeah.
Right? Love is sometimes hard. We've heard of tough love, and all those things, right? But sometimes love is confrontational, and sometimes love is terminating someone's employment. So, I had to fire someone for stealing sometime, right? Like you can't work here anymore, but we still see you. You are not defined by this screw up. You are still an image bearer. There is still value in your life, right? Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing though. Love is redemptive, right? I had to fire someone for severe performance deficiencies, right? You can't work here anymore, but we still see the image of God in you. We still will walk alongside of you because love does not rejoice in wrongdoing. It rejoices in the truth. That is redemptive termination, I believe.
For sure. And I know that not everybody listening to this, like you said earlier, will have to have that type of conversation, right? Whether it's a hiring one or a firing one. But I think that overlays just in life in general, that there's going to be times that you have to have those conversations. You have to have those situations where you have to, I do not like confrontation. I run from it as much as I can, right? But when it comes, still finding myself doing exactly what you said in those moments of seeing the person.
Yeah.
Seeing the person and the love. What does the love of truth mean at that point, right? How can we move forward to that? Doesn't mean that we have to walk away from this perfectly understanding and everybody has the warm fuzzies like you say, but it is the conversation that is it has to happen. And I'm going to see you, but we're going to move on from this.
Right.
And so even if you don't have to hire or fire somebody, in your lifetime, it works and overlays in every single aspect in every relationship in your life.
And I'll give you again another, I think, beautiful story as we wrap this up here. But again, meeting with another fellow management company owner a few years ago, and we were having lunch, and he said, "Hey, I'm just going to eat light today." And I said, "Oh, what's going on?" He said, "Well, we've got a huge dinner tonight." I said, "Oh, for who?" He said, "Well, it's a former employee who had pretty major surgery this week, and all of us are getting together, and we made food, and we're taking it over to their house."
Wow.
And so he begins to tell me this story. This person actually was terminated. He had to terminate this person 6 months earlier.
Wow.
But they still loved this person. Yeah. They still cared for this person. They said, "Look, you can't work here anymore.
Yeah.
But we see you, we see your humanity." Yeah. And the whole team was gathering together to go share a meal with this person in a time of need and a time of medical recovery. And I think, again, those stories aren't always possible. I won't say, sometimes, a couple of the people I've had to terminate, they don't really care to speak to me anymore, even though it was a justified and I believe ultimately redemptive firing, right? Like you can't always control the horizontal response and relationship. But when it's possible, right, stay with the person, commit to the person, see the person, because even though they don't work for you anymore, even though you had to terminate that that relationship in that way, they're still a human, and Jesus would call us to see them in the image of God in them.
Yeah. And even if you don't, you can't control their response, right?
Right.
So it's really the response that you can control is staying in that mindset, in that ability to go, I see you, I'm with you, I'm walking with you, but I can't control your response to whatever is said or whatever is done here.
That's right.
And that's really what it boils down to. And so, yeah, man, I hope that's an encouragement to you as we talk a little bit of practical on the hiring and firing. I know there's probably 100 other stories that we could tell or that other people could tell, but we want to jump into our missional moment for this week because actually one of the stories that you just told, Kanika, we're talking with her this week on this missional moment.
Yeah, and she's going to have some really encouraging things for you, and I think you'll realize why we love her so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So tune in right now for this week's missional moment.
For this week's missional moment, we bring it a little bit closer to home and talk to someone really special to me and to us here at our organization. For those of you who don't know, we actually run a nonprofit housing company as part of our business as mission model here in conjunction with the Stone Table. And my friend Kanika Butler runs one of our biggest properties here in our real estate portfolio, 420 plus units of multifamily low-income housing. And Kanika is not only one of our valued team members, she's also my friend. And I asked her to talk to us this week about how she brings her faith into her work, how her faith and her belief in Jesus impacts how she runs a property on a day in and day out basis. Let's take a look.
Funny thing about it is you actually have to have faith to bring the love of God to a community. You have to lead with your faith to bring the love of God. So I have my team, we try everything to lead with love. We try to lead with dignity, and we try to lead with respect. And I took the moment over the years, I've looked up the word faith. And one of the things that stood out to me in one of the words, because we pledge our life to God. And when I decided to get into this business, I decided to pledge my life to this business because somebody believed in me. They took the time out to have the faith in me. And I understand these residents. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids by the time I was 22. I was on Section 8. So somebody had to have enough faith in me to say, hey, it won't always be like this. It will turn around. So that's how we lead this team. And I always tell people that's on our Section 8, because out of my portfolio, I have 200 some Section 8 in one area. So I always tell people, this is not a death sentence. You're not made to live off of the government. You're here as a stepping stone. So I use my faith and my hope and my prayers. We're constantly pushing the residents forward. And it's hard to say that because you don't want to have a great turnaround. So, but at the same token, you want to let them know, hey, I have a tax credit side, I have a market side. There's homes out there that they're building. There's more to this life instead of just generation from generation looking forward to getting on Section 8. So that's how we run this community. That's how I use my faith, my hope, and my love that they want to do something better for themselves.
So on the podcast this week, we were talking about really seeing people, about seeing the image of God that's stamped on everyone that we encounter and work with, and those we serve through the work of our hands. We were talking about seeing the value in someone and drawing it out. And I think Kanika and her team do that so well. And she tells us really underneath it all what the driving force is for that ability to see the Imago Dei in those she serves and works with.
One of the things to me is empathy. So usually when I throw a word out there, I have to really go look it up and make sure I understand the full meaning of what empathy means. And it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't understand, but you have the ability to understand. If you really search your heart, you have the ability to understand what I go through. And I'm reminded, and I'll probably get a little spiritual about, there's a scripture in the Bible, I want to say it's Romans 12:15. You rejoice when other people rejoice and you weep when they weep. And I'm also reminded about something else when Jesus in the Bible, when Mary, her brother Lazarus died. I love that story. And she came to God weeping, and mighty who he is, he could have stood there in almightiness and say, hey, don't worry about that. I'm going to raise him from the dead. Don't fret, stop crying. But what he did, he showed some empathy and he began to weep. He began to weep and understand her concerns.
I asked Kanika to tell us a story, a real life story of the way these things flush themselves out in real life. And the story may sound familiar to you because we talked about it earlier in the podcast, but I wanted Kanika to tell you from her own perspective and with her own passion. Take a listen.
I hired a young lady that was on Section 8 and lived on this property for 10 years. So when I became the manager here, I watched her come in and she used to go through the paperwork. She would correct us. That let me know she was reading what we were giving her. So she was just not living on Section 8. But she was really trying to make it out. She just needed an opportunity. So one day, one of my workers was moving to the corporate office, and I asked her, I said, I would like to interview you. Her name was Marina. And she said, you want to interview me? She said, I'm on Section 8. I said, but I see more than your current situation. I see that you can be, I believe in surrounding myself with a team that want to do what I want to do. I said, so I see a little more. You just need an opportunity. So I hired her. I made her, she went from making $11 an hour to, making some more. And I kept pushing her to be the best in that area. Even to the point where now she works for Quadell and she's probably on tripled her income. So I feel like when you work in this position, you have the opportunity to give back. So that's me giving back to somebody else. I'm deciding to reach back and pull somebody forward. And so we do that all the time in this, amongst my team. We're constantly reaching back. And I hire my parents to do the cleaning, but I also ask them to reach into the community. They've hired some people on out here in the community to clean the office, to help with the hallway. So to me, that's showing the love of Christ.
Yeah.
That's using my faith that they're going to do their best. And that's also reaching back to pull them forward. So that's to me how we pour love into these residents.
Every day when we go to work, we have the ability to fulfill the great commandment with the work of our hands, to honor God and love, in our case, literally our neighbor, with the work that God has given us to do. I hope Kanika's story inspires you in some way to see what you do each and every day through the lens of the gospel and the great commandment, because you too have the ability to honor God and love your neighbor when the alarm clock goes off and you head to the office this week.
See, we told you. We did not lie about Kanika. We did not lie at all. We love her and love what she brings, not only to the team, but just in life in general, and so much passion.
She's a redemptive leader.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope that was an encouragement to you today. But that is going to wrap up this episode here, Eric.
That's right.
We've done it yet again.
7 down.
7 down. Let's keep it rocking and rolling.
That's right.
But yeah, why don't you let everybody know where they can find more resources just like this one here, the Missional Marketplace podcast.
Yeah, and again, just thank you so much for being a part of this with us.
For sure.
We're doing this really out of a desire to encourage marketplace believers, because we believe the mobilization of the marketplace to help every believer, and regardless what their career or their job or their everyday work looks like, to help them understand that who they are and how God made them is part of God's work in the world and part of his mission in the world. And so I just hope in some way that it's encouraged you. So if you want more information, we've got a great resource page, articles, videos. These podcasts are archived there at thestonetable.org. you can find out more information about us. But then also, you've mentioned the book, and I don't mind promoting the book, because it really is a labor of love, right? Like it's not putting food on my kids' table. All the if you go out and buy this, it really is just an endeavor to encourage marketplace people in this. For sure. In this realm. You can find that on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, wherever online books are sold. Also, the audiobook is on audible.com. And so we're really excited about that. But as far as the podcast is concerned, folks, I would ask if this has meant anything to you, please do me a favor, subscribe to it, because again, we're trying to establish this in this first season. We're trying to establish it as a new podcast, and rate it. Give us a comment, as long as you're feeling, nice and chipper, and really, if this has been an encouragement to you, the greatest gift you can give us is just to share it with somebody else. For sure. And so, you can find that, you can go to anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. But there is where all of the different, platforms are available, Spotify, YouTube, and then obviously Apple podcast, which is, I'm sure, where a lot of people are listening. Yeah, that's right. So, so again, thestonetable.org. We're on social media, all of that as well. So like, rate, share, and we're grateful for it.
Yeah, and again, thanks for taking this journey with us. We hope it's an encouragement to you. And until then, know that this podcast, the Missional Marketplace podcast, is all about accelerating the Great Commission through the marketplace. We hope that's an encouragement to you. We'll see you again here next week.